I'm Katie.
I'm Claire, and we did our project on early childhood and emergent literacy. So emergent literacy is defined, it encompasses the knowledge, skills, and attitudes that a child develops in relation to reading and writing throughout early childhood periods, starting at birth and before the onset of conventional reading and writing instruction, so usually when they enter kindergarten. And emergent literacy includes aspects such as oral language, so both speaking and listening, understanding that print carries meaning, as well as basic alphabet knowledge and early awareness. Okay, so this is just a cute little inspirational why it's important to learn to read. Oh, how do we do that?
Ready?
A, B, C, D, E, F, G. No, not good. Just the sounds that will make cat, dog, calamari, trash on the beach. Good. Farm fresh. My son and I mowed the grass. Dad, hey Thomas, I read your book. You read my book? Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that just kind of showed that even though we're talking about children, it's never too late to learn to read and stuff, and it can be through generational gaps.
Okay, so this is talking about English as a second language. So in my practicum, we have 4 children that are English as a second language. 3 of them are Spanish learners, and another one is Korean. And so this is just kind of the main takeaways I got from my research on English as a second language. And so the hearing and producing sounds that are not part of their native language can be super hard. So they have difficulty making sounds that they're not used to. So for instance, one of the children in my class really loves to play police officer, and he will just say, "I'm a police, and so it's hard for us to understand them. But there's a lot of strategies that teachers can use. So just demonstrating and reinforcing the correct production of the word. So saying "Oh, you're a police," say it with me police. And they might not really even get it then, but they are hearing it and processing that. That's how you say it, and that might not be how they're saying it. And then reading in their native language. If they are able to read in their native language, that's a huge plus, or I can't think of the word, but they have an advantage because it's thought that you only learn to read once. And so once they know how to read, even if it's their native language, they have that ability to match a letter with a sound. And so they can apply this knowledge to new language. However, when they can read in their native language and they're 4, that's not as, they probably can't read in their native language. And then another way to help is the alphabet and letter sound relationship. A big thing is pointing to each letter when you sing the alphabet, so that they can see this is A, this is B, this is C, and that it's not just a song that they sing. And then the letter sound relationships is just giving them hands-on activities like puzzles with letters, or just things like that. And then connecting between the languages is super helpful because they just need to realize that words mean the same thing in either languages, so that they can know that all words have meanings, whether or not it's like English or Spanish or Korean. And then the 5,000 is the average amount of words a kindergarten or a preschooler knows as they're going into kindergarten, which is very different when they're an English language learner because they might know 5,000 words in their native language, but they might know 10 in English, which is really hard when you're going into kindergarten and your teacher doesn't understand how to help you with that. And then just giving the background in books and saying using pictures to be like, this person looks sad, just oversimplifying it so that they can realize that things connect. And then this is a short little video, and it's really old, so bear with me. It's from 2007. No. It's okay.
This unique training series shows teachers and providers powerful communication and support strategies that build understanding, enhance language acquisition, and boost outcomes for English language learners and for all children. Starting Points helps answer the key question: how can I communicate with children who don't speak English? Viewers learn that the first step is making sure both children and families feel welcome and valued. The videos show how teachers use simple strategies to create respectful, accepting classroom communities. Viewers also discover how much information they can get across to children who don't speak English when they use multisensory experiences and nonverbal communication. Many techniques for enhancing language and literacy development are shown, and key stages of second language acquisition are demonstrated. Here's a clip on second language acquisition from the third video in the series, Bringing Language Alive.
But what about second language acquisition? How does this differ? Listen to Cesar, a native Spanish speaker, as he works with his friend. When a child already knows a language, words and concepts already exist in his language dictionary. Older children may have acquired thousands of words and concepts. This base in a child's first language is the foundation on which a second language is built.
You have to understand that the first language is important. What you know in the first language will transition into the second language. What is this for? Is that ears on me? Wonderful.
For more information on Starting Points, check our website at www.edpro.com.
Okay, so what we know about young children is that they're like sponges, even from birth. They are absorbing everything around them. And so in order to bridge the gap between literacy, it's important to start it as early as possible, so even from infancy, from birth. The most important years are 0 to 3. A good resource to look at is the 0 to 3 website, and it just talks about the benefits. Okay, so the benefits of reading to infants and toddlers, even though it may seem silly because they can't even talk yet, are increasing their language skills, improving vocabulary, boosting their brain activity, fine-tuning social and emotional recognition, just from the characters in the book. And it also builds relationships and connections with the child's caregiver, which is super important for just their confidence and their overall emotional health and well-being. So something to think about when you're reading to children, to young children, are presence, time, words, print, and intention. And basically that's just saying to take your time, really be in the moment when you're reading to a child. Think about what you're doing and even point to words even when they're young so they can see and make the connection between words on a page and words that are spoken. And just be intentional, think about building those relationships. Even if you're unable to read a book with your baby, think about changing times and meal times, reading to them when, speaking to them when you're just doing everyday activities. And that just promotes communication and just exposes them to language as early as possible. And a good quote from the American Academy of Pediatrics says, reading regularly with young children stimulates optimal patterns of brain development and strengthens parent-child or caregiver relationships at a critical time in child development, which in turn builds language, literacy, and social emotional skills that last a lifetime.
Okay, so I looked up poverty and its impact on literacy, and it has a really major impact on children and even adults. So basically, as we know, poverty is a cycle, and it's really hard to break out of that cycle, and that can even be seen with literacy within poverty. So children who don't know how to read then just kind of get passed and left by in school to become adults that don't really know how to read. They may have memorized words and key phrases that they can see and recognize, but they don't necessarily know how to read. And then they have children, and since they can't read to their children, the children become illiterate, and the cycle just continues on and on. So children growing up in poverty, there's a lack of exposure to different kinds of languages and stuff like that, and they also can't break out of the cycle. It's really hard when you start and you're in 5th grade and you don't know how to read to then try to pick up at a 5th grade level. Also, 1 in 5 children live in poverty, and poverty not only can affect literacy, it causes a lot of stress within children, so reading may not be a priority for parents or children when you have to think about when your next meal comes from or where you're living, is it safe. Also, poverty affects school districts, so children who live in poverty may not be districted for the nicest, most prestigious schools. There's a tendency for bad teachers, but teachers who just are burnt out to be at these kind of schools, and they also lack the resources, so they might not have enough books or textbooks or programs for their children. And so one big thing is to help them early so children don't fall behind. So if you do work with children in poverty at daycares or centers and stuff like that, just to be giving them exposure, and you can provide resources and stuff like that you can send home for free. And also making sure that all handouts and stuff you're giving to parents are also at a below an 8th grade reading level, just in case they are illiterate themselves. So we have a little activity. So I found that an easy way to promote literacy in children, even if you don't have all the books at home and you can't, maybe you're not close enough to a library, stuff like that, is you can just look at out in the world and in popular culture and just see what you find. So logos, road signs, newspaper, brand names, just stuff you see every day when you're walking around outside, that you can kind of expose children to. So these were just some examples, a stop sign. You can either just read the word stop, look at the examples, logos like Amazon. Most of the time newspapers are free on the sidewalk, so you can pick them up and you could cut out words and stuff like that. So if we were in class, we just asked for people to come up with other examples of things you see every day. So maybe restaurant signs or stuff in the grocery store, stuff like that, supermarket stuff. Just that you can be exposing them to language even if you don't have a book.
Okay, so I did biliteracy, which is teaching bilingual children to read and write in more than one alphabet, and it's kind of similar to Tali's
bilingualism, but what I was focusing on was there's two types of bilingual children. There's the children who are learning another language because their parents speak, say, Spanish at home, but they're going to school and speaking English. And there are also children whose parents speak completely like all English, and they send their child to a school where the child is having all of his or her lessons in French so that their child can be bilingual. So what I really looked into was which language you should start with when you're trying to teach the child how to read and how to write, and which alphabet they should look at, because obviously with some languages like French and English and Spanish and German, the alphabet is not that different. But if you're trying to teach your child English and Mandarin, then it's a completely different alphabet and very, very confusing for them. So what I found was that if the parent does choose to introduce both languages simultaneously, the minority language should always be focused on. So that means like if your parent and you speak Spanish, you should focus on teaching your child Spanish, because your child is going to be learning English everywhere else at school, and that's what they'll be exposed to more. And then it always depends on a particular child. There are some studies that have found that children who are learning two alphabets at the same time, or are trying to learn how to read and write in two different languages at once, can sometimes have an issue with quantity over quality. So they're getting all of this information, and yeah, like they can speak some French and they can speak some English, but how are they really understanding, like emotional and social cues in both languages? And that's just an issue. And obviously sometimes it can be hard to separate for like a 3-year-old who's trying to read and write in both languages. They can get easily confused. And then also we made this brochure, and basically each panel has one of our focuses, so poverty, bilingual learners, early literacy, and then we have some tips for parents on the back. And then I have a little video to show on this. It's kind of weird.
Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm going to show you my awesome new Wix website. It's got everything I love all in one place. Into 3 general types. For example, let's take Gabriella, whose family immigrates to the US from Peru when she's 2 years old. As a compound bilingual, Gabriella develops 2 linguistic codes simultaneously with a single set of concepts, learning both English and Spanish as she begins to process the world around her. Her teenage brother, on the other hand, might be a coordinate bilingual, working with 2 sets of concepts, learning English in school while continuing to speak Spanish at home and with friends. Finally, Gabriella's parents are likely to be subordinate bilinguals, who learn a secondary language by filtering it through their primary language. Because all types of bilingual people can become fully proficient in a language, regardless of accent or pronunciation, the difference may not be apparent to a casual observer. But recent advances in brain imaging technology have given neurolinguists a glimpse into how specific aspects of language learning affect the bilingual brain. It's well known that the brain's left hemisphere is more dominant in analytical and logical processes, while the right hemisphere is more active in emotional and social ones. Though this is a matter of degree, not an absolute split. The fact that language involves both types of functions, while lateralization develops gradually with age, has led to the critical period hypothesis. According to this theory, children learn languages more easily because the plasticity of their developing brains lets them use both hemispheres in language acquisition. While in most adults, language is lateralized to one hemisphere, usually the left. If this is true, Learning the language in childhood may give you a more holistic grasp of its social and emotional contexts. Conversely, recent research showed that people who learned a second language in adulthood exhibit less emotional bias and a more rational approach when confronting problems in the second language than in their native one. But regardless of when you acquire additional languages, being multilingual gives your brain some remarkable advantages. Some of these are even visible, such as higher density of the gray matter that contains most of your brain's neurons and synapses, and more activity in certain regions when engaging a second language. The heightened workout a bilingual brain receives throughout its life can also help delay the onset of diseases like Alzheimer's and dementia by as much as 5 years. The idea of major cognitive benefits to bilingualism may seem intuitive now, but it would have surprised earlier experts. Before the 1960s, bilingualism was considered a handicap that slowed a child's development by forcing them to spend too much energy distinguishing between languages, a view based largely on flawed studies. And while a more recent study did show that reaction times and errors increased for some bilingual students in cross-language tests, it also showed that the effort and attention needed to switch between languages triggered more activity in, and potentially strengthened, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. This is the part of the brain that plays a large role in executive function, problem solving, switching between tasks, and focusing while filtering out irrelevant information. So, while bilingualism may not necessarily make you smarter, it does make your brain more healthy, complex, and actively engaged. And even if you didn't have the good fortune of learning a second language as a child, it's never too late to do yourself a favor and make the linguistic leap from hello to hola, bonjour, or ni haos. Because when it comes to our brains, a little exercise can go a long way.
Just some sources.
Yay.
Awesome.